with yet another episode of the Behind the Edge podcast. Joining us for episode 4 is Will Parsons of Parsons Bladeworks. Welcome to the pod, Will.
Hey, I'm happy to be here.
I am also joined by my co-hosts.
Hey, I'm Caleb.
I'm Vex.
Hey, I'm Jake. Improvise.
that was a really great improvisation. I'm glad we got our introductions down. So anyway, thanks everyone for coming to the pod. This episode is about knife design, the iterative restyling of designs. I know that's fancy wording. Chinese clones, knives of Theseus, and much, much more. We are also changing the format of the podcast. But before we get into that, how is everyone doing and what is everyone carrying?
Okay, well, I'm doing pretty good. I had a long drive, but I just got home 10 minutes ago. But today I carried my Paramilitary 2 DLT sprint run in 20 CV. Very, very nice knife. I really like it. Probably my favorite, one of my favorite PM2 iterations. So, yeah. Jake?
Yeah, I'm doing okay as well. And I'm carrying the Booze Blade Smoke today.
I'm doing pretty good too. I carried the JDVD Gold today because I don't know why. I just picked it.
Just a flex.
Yeah, just
Flex.
to flex on myself.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm carrying my Quiet Carry Drift that I actually bought off of Brian, and I just got it, so I've been carrying it for the past few days, trying to see if I really like it or not.
I didn't know Brian sold that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm selling everything, so.
Why?
Yeah, so I guess I should go next. So I am carrying the Parsons Bug Out. Basically, it's a bug out with scales made by Will. That is the only knife I have left. Like, that hasn't been put up for sale, yeah. Basically, I went into debt for the first time in my life. Even when I went to college, I went on scholarship money. I never went into debt or borrowed money from a bank or anything. I don't have a credit card, etc. But yeah, so you're not going to hear much from me in terms of carry every week. It's just going to be the bug out because I actually just don't have anything else.
What did you do to go into debt? What did you buy? Is there some sort of big purchase?
Oh, a lot of stuff. I just bought. It's not one thing. Like, you don't go into debt like buying one thing. You know.
Well, you might if you know.
Yeah.
Okay, you buy a car, you go into debt.
That's true.
Cocaine.
Yeah.
Yeah, cocaine.
So
for sure.
I bought the pretty much. What did I even? Okay, so I bought a bunch of stuff for reblading. So that's like knives to be rebladed. Right, which I don't count as collection because I'm going to sell them as soon as they're rebladed. So it's more like materials. I bought a bunch of steel, like $300 worth of steel. I bought a bunch of belts to grind that steel. I bought a bunch of bits to drill holes into the steel. Like, it ended up being like $1,300.
Dang.
And then so I'm in debt to my sister now because I borrowed from her.
Hey, at least it's your family.
Wait, are you selling your EWC as well?
Sorry, what?
Your EWC, are you keeping it?
No, I already sold that.
Oh, dang it, I missed it.
Yeah, no, everything is gone. Everything is gone. So every week, don't even ask me. It's just gonna be bug out.
And you rebladed that bug out already, didn't you?
No, the bug out. I just regrinded it, and then I made an LMAX reblade, but I didn't feel like finishing it just because. I mean, I have my own gripes with the bug out. I'd rather do the 940 ones, which I'm working on. So we'll get into that later, though.
Yeah, the 940 regrind looked cool.
Yeah, so, but anyway, so that's nice. I'm glad to hear everyone is doing well. You didn't go too in detail on your lives, which is okay.
I mean, we can.
Tell me everything.
No, we don't have to. We can
that's
move
fine.
on.
So,
Move on to
We
knives.
need this podcast to be like 4 hours.
I know. All right. So, some housekeeping real quick. So, from this episode onwards, we are changing the format of the podcast. We're going to start with the guest interview, move on to upcoming knives and news, and then end on a main topic. The reason for this change is because we had our first guest on last episode, Eric Ziliak of Indiana Knives, and we felt like we didn't put enough of a focus on our guest, and like I think, having the guest interview first, like, encourages, like, the guest to start talking first and, like, chime in on the topic later and stuff like that. So it just makes more sense to do the interview first.
It gets rid of their nerves,
Yes,
it kind of gets them
exactly.
gets them into the podcast more, and hopefully will allow them to interact more later on in the podcast. So hopefully that'll be a good change. I think it will be.
Yep, and then also,
no
like,
pressure, Will.
having one main topic makes more sense because, like, I mean, if all the topics are going to be related anyways, we might as well just have a main topic and then just talk about it in different ways or from different perspectives. So, and knives and news is just knives and news. Okay, so let's start off with the guest interview. Welcome, Will. Can you tell us a bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, so my name's Will. I'm from California. I'm 19, in college. Yeah.
You're a knife designer.
Well, aspiring. I'm trying to be.
Yeah, and a scale designer primarily, right? So.
Right. Yeah.
All right. So you're a designer, but before we get into that, I just kind of want to know a little bit more about who you are. So, what are you like studying in college?
Okay, so I'm an engineering student, mechanical engineering. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, didn't you tell me at one point you were interested in like also like graphic design and stuff like that?
Like product design?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to focus on that as well. I'm not exactly sure if I'm gonna do like a minor or just full engineering, but I have some time before I have to decide that. So
yeah, I know for sure you have a lot of time. So,
since he's in a mechanical engineering major, that's why he gets so much hands-on time in CAD, probably, right? Well, I guess you probably learned it from somewhere else. I know you're still not into your core classes, but
well, actually, I took an engineering class in high school. We did a little bit with CAD, but other than that, I haven't taken a class on it. I knew that I could get it for free from that class in high school, so I downloaded it about 2 years ago now, and I was basically just messing around with it, trying to see what I could make. My first folder design definitely wasn't anything spectacular, but I just keep learning how to do different things, do them faster, and I think I'm getting there.
Yeah, I've seen your knife designs. I like them. I think they're really cool. I mean, your scale design and your bug out scale design in particular, they're very sleek, very cool. I know they're not as like crazy milled as some of the other ones out there, but they're definitely good options. I think they're well priced too for what they are.
Well, thank you. Yeah, the lack of milling it has to do with my price point, because when I started making scales, I really wanted to provide a lower end option, like a lower cost option, to stiffen up the bug out and make it just feel nicer in the hand.
Yeah,
and more premium. A lot of people were saying that it just felt like a cheap knife.
Yeah,
and for $120, people weren't really that happy with it. And even though it was still popular, so
right.
When I started, it was just I think me, Rock Scale, and maybe Rogue Bladeworks. But they were making titanium and carbon fiber, so I just wanted to provide a little bit lower cost.
Let's reel it back. I think. How did you get into knives? Like what? Let's start. What was your first knife?
Okay, well, I've always been interested in knives. My dad's given me a few over the years, a Swiss Army knife, and I think he got me a Kershaw Leek.
Yeah.
Before, yeah. The first one I bought myself was I don't know if I can remember the name, but it was an assisted Kershaw with a recurve and a bead blasted 8CR blade.
And those are still things that you enjoy in knives, right?
Oh yes.
It's like, let me just name every Kershaw real quick, and then we can guess what Kershaw it was.
It's like 1,000.
Yeah, I think it perished because of the bead blast on the blade. I think it just got a lot of rust on it. But yeah, I've been throughout my life, I've been involved in a few different use cases, and I think it like kind of helped me understand maybe different perspectives in this community. So a few years ago, I had some really heavy outdoor experience. It was mostly fixed blades. I used to go to a camp in northern Ontario, and it was a lot of wood processing, collecting firewood and just camp stuff. So I was a lot way more into fixed blades back then. And then I've had a few jobs that involved a lot of heavy cardboard processing. And, as you can imagine, that's when I really got into geometry and higher end steels. Just because I had to cut so much cardboard and it was like double, triple wall,
Yeah.
Yes.
So
triple wall.
I guess that makes sense. You're saying so as you went to those different kind of workplaces. I know not all of them were workplaces, but places you were using knives to work with. You graduated in kind of the different knives you wanted.
Yeah, basically. I'm not really into fixed blades anymore, but I still know kind of what to look for, just because of that.
Right.
Use I've gotten in the past.
That makes sense. So when did you really start collecting? Were you always collecting during that time, like from when you started with the leak and all that stuff, or did it really pick up at a certain time of your life?
Well, it was back then. It was more what I needed, and this hobby's not really about what you need anymore, at least from where I am. So I just had something that was the best at the job that I needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
But it was about a little over a year and a half ago, I think. I started at another job, and it just involved a lot of heavy cardboard cutting. So I just wanted to get a nice folder that I could carry to work and process that cardboard without having to use the box cutters that they provided.
Mm-hmm.
And I decided on a Kaiser Vanguard Gemini, and I just really liked it. Sorry, it was a Dukes, Kaiser Vanguard Dukes, and I just really liked the thing. It was my first non-assisted knife, and I was just pretty amazed at the bearings and the VG10 steel, which, it doesn't sound that nice anymore, but
Mm-hmm.
I was coming from 8CR13 MOV and just poor geometry and such, so that was a pretty cool first knife.
So it's
and
upgrades.
Really, yeah, for sure.
And for a good price, too. Their prices are really well for what they are.
Yeah. I think it was $65.
Yeah.
So this is why
yeah.
you're a recurve junkie now, right?
Yeah, that one had some recurve too. Before buying that, I was just doing a lot of research on the best steel, and that knife is actually where I found the Nick Shabazz review channel. It was one of his early reviews was the Vanguard Dukes, and that his positive review kind of made me want to pick it up. So
Yeah, for sure. So we should mention that we all know Will from the Discord, the Knife Club Discord.
Yeah.
So we're that's why we're joking every now and then, hey, you like recurves, right? Because we know he doesn't. But when I first joined the Discord, the two things that I knew about you were that one, you made some aftermarket parts for the CRKT Pilar, and two, you made aftermarket scales for the Benchmade bug out. And so I want to know how you got into doing that particularly.
okay, well, actually the first kind of professional business oriented thing that I started doing this hobby was professional sharpening, and that basically started when I picked up KME from the Reddit Knife Swap Reddit, and I was just trying to pay it off basically with doing sharpening jobs for other people, because it was twice as expensive as my most expensive knife at that point, and so yeah, I was just hoping to kind of make some of the money back on that.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I don't know. I got kind of used to, or not used to, but a little bit of experience with the professional world of the hobby. And when I saw that the bug outs were getting popular and I got my own, I just thought, this feels it doesn't feel very nice for how expensive it is. So I kind of wanted to get some upgraded scales for it. and I was just looking around, and they were all, $120, $140. So I just wanted to put a lower cost option out there to just make it feel nicer in the hand. And then the Pilar washers were they came later after the first version of the bug out scales, but I've done a few different versions of the scales with just some improvements on the models, some lightning pockets, and a little bit of contouring and such. I had picked up a S35VN and carbon fiber Pilar, and I really didn't like the Teflon, and I've heard people complain about it, so I put a survey on Reddit just to feel for interest, and I got a pretty good response. So I just got a batch made, custom made, and started selling them.
Right, and you contract that out basically, right, for the washers.
I don't really have a setup to punch washers out of bronze sheets, but I made sure that they're a good company, and I tried them out on mine just to make sure they fit and everything. So I think they make it feel a lot nicer just because they're made with just better tolerances than the CRKT washers. I've heard of some of them not even coming with missing a washer or
having double washers on.
I don't know.
Well,
they're cheap.
The Pilar is a mixed bag. Knives. The Pilar is a mixed bag in what you're gonna get. When Carbodize showed the different lengths of the screws and all that, I was that was wild.
Well, there's a little variance for sure.
They use several different factories for just random batches of them, because he was showing pictures of several, and they had completely different kinds of chamfering. Some of them had edge fillets and rounding on the edges, and others had flat chamfers. It was just wow.
Yeah,
that's not really the same at all.
It's crazy.
I actually, your washers were the first thing that I bought from you. This is before Discord, and I put them on my large Pilar. Uh-huh. The only thing I really liked about that knife was the action, because once those washers were on there and they had been polished down a little bit, it flipped amazingly. But the rest of the knife is just so
crap
rough.
I
wasn't gonna be that mean, but yeah,
I've been kind of attempting to fix my Pilars. It came better than most, actually. It didn't have a burr on the lock face and anything like that, but the whole back of it was kind of ground at a slant, so one side sticks out more than the other and everything. So I got the scale from Carbodize and a backspacer from him, and I'm just replacing parts slowly, trying to make it fit a little bit better.
A decent
together.
knife.
Yeah, so I think honestly, when I first joined the Discord, I was really impressed by just how much stuff you were doing, because you are only 19. I don't mean that as you're only 19, but it's in an impressive way. You're pretty young, you have a lot of time ahead of you to do other things. You're still in college, and so I think it's really cool that you're already engaged in the community in this way. And so what I want to know is, what are some of your future plans?
So these days, you've heard about some of my issues with making scales, especially for that specific model. There's some design flaws, maybe production issues, and I don't know. It's a saturated market, the scale market. So I've been trying to branch out into designing an entire knife myself. So I think my latest one is my 13th, actually. I've just been designing them in my CAD program and sharing them around a little bit, seeing what I can improve on, and hopefully I can get one of them sold pretty soon.
So the goal is kind of designing a knife and selling that design to a production company.
Yeah, that would be the first step into becoming a knife designer. I'm hoping I can get further than that, but yeah, the first step is definitely just selling a design. Doesn't have to be much money at all. Just basically to get a qualification, right? Because right now it's hard to kind of enter the business when I don't have any real experience. Like I haven't sold anything to any other company. So,
well, that's a big step, selling your first design, and that can really get your name out there a lot more so than the stuff you've been doing already. Although that does give you some credibility if a company's selling your knife and they're selling a bunch of them. It's going to look a lot better to other companies if you're trying to sell other designs, or if people are going to buy your design just for consumers.
Well, I think the best part for him is that he's already told us that he basically has a portfolio built that he can show companies for them to look through, so they have kind of a variety to choose from to see kind of like the strengths and weaknesses in his design process. So hopefully it works out. I think Will's definitely got a good chance at getting picked up eventually. I want to buy a design from him, but
yeah,
well, that's the interesting thing is that the reality is that companies are very averse to risk. We see that a lot in this industry where companies don't want to change anything. And so it's more difficult for a newer designer to sell a good design than it is for a well-known designer to sell a bad design, right? Because
we've seen that a lot.
Yeah, I mean, because let's be honest, there's so many bad designs that get sold just because of the name, right? I don't mean that to insult anyone. Obviously, they got their name because they made some good designs, but they also sell their worst designs more easily because of the name that they've established over time.
That's true.
But yeah, so. Yeah, and then, but there was an interesting thing that Will said that I wanted to ask about. So when you were saying that the scale market is saturated, do you think are you talking about the bug out specifically because it's been around so long and so many people have started making scales for it? Or do you mean in general, like scales as a whole, there's not much room for people to enter that market anymore?
Well, definitely the bug out market is super saturated. It was pretty easy to carve out my space when it was me, Rockscale, and Rogue Bladeworks. But as more people entered in the lower cost option, that's kind of where I've always been. The lower cost because I work with aluminum and everything like that. But especially when Flytanium entered, they're just a big company, and they're putting out $35 bug out scales now, and it's causing some issues for everyone. Yeah, very cheap.
I guess, well, at this point, they're basically a production company for other production companies, right? They're not, you couldn't really call them like an aftermarket, like a traditional aftermarket maker.
Now.
They are mass producing.
Yeah.
So.
And, even Rogue Bladeworks has at least several people, but just not that scale. They also make titanium ones for, I think, $70 or $80, which, that causes issues for Rockscale too.
Now, that's interesting to me because, this isn't really related to the interview, but I just really want to ask this because I just thought that came up. So let's imagine that Flytanium, they're already big, but they get even bigger and they start becoming this, basically mass production company. And so let's say like a popular design comes out and they try to corner the market by, making scales of like every conceivable material for that knife. Before anyone else can in large quantities, before even the company itself who made the knife can, right? Because companies sometimes want to do that. They want to re-release a knife with different materials, right? Different scale, whatever.
Yeah.
That sort of takes away that opportunity from the company if you do it at the scale that Flytanium is. So I'm just wondering, is that a concern for companies going forward where they might be like, oh, you can't make, aftermarket things and sell them?
That's actually a good point. I've never really thought about it that way, but yeah, they might get in trouble with a company if, say, with the bug out, how they're planning a G10 version. Mm-hmm. If they just started pumping out tons and tons of those, it might really hurt Benchmade sales. And
well, like you said, their G10 scales are only like $35, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But
right. So before,
if someone already has a bug out, why would they sell theirs and then buy this new bug out when they can just slap some G10 on there for $30?
Exactly, right? Yeah. You get the blade upgrade, but it's it's interesting in that sense that companies want to iterate, right? They want to capitalize on a popular design and continue to use that same design in different materials, if someone else is, taking away that opportunity in a large scale, because before, like, the scale market was not that large, right? So companies weren't very concerned.
No, it's grown a lot.
If anything, it's a relationship that has changed, in my opinion, where at first aftermarket scale makers were helping companies sell knives because people would only buy the knife given that the scale option was available, right? Because I only bought a bug out because I could buy your scales for them. Otherwise, the bug out is not interesting for me. But at the point at which you get Flytanium level, like that scale where you're just like taking every part of the market, even from the company itself who made the knife and designed it, I can see it becoming a problem moving forward as they get to be a bigger and bigger company. But that's for the main topic. I guess we'll get there later.
It could. We're just gonna have to wait and see how it plays out and see how much Flytanium eats Benchmade's market, especially in relation to their new G10 version of the bug out. But the knife companies, the knife manufacturers, I don't think they've ever saw the scale market as a big predator, because
you still have to buy the knife first.
Yeah, you still have to buy the knife first. So it's more of a problem for like sprint runs. So like sprint runs and special versions of knives, like the new G10 bug out.
Yeah. Right, because this bug out, they're not trying to sell it to new people. They're trying to sell it to people who already have bug outs and as an upgrade. Because most of the people who want bug outs have bug outs. Like they're clearly aiming this at that same market, pretty much the same demographic.
You mean want like the new 20CV G10 bug out?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know
why.
We'll
talk about that with upcoming news though, but
yeah. Okay. Yeah.
All right. So next question. So I want to talk a little bit about designing knives from your perspective, because you said you've made about 13 designs, and so I want to know what do you think about when you're designing a knife? Like, do you have like core principles that you follow? Like, do you just start with a blank slate and then just start going to town on CAD? Like, how does the process start?
Well, when I first started out, I just started with a pencil and paper, and then I just cut out the shapes and put a pin through where I thought the pivot should go, and see how it works folded. But I realized that I don't really have to actually do that step, because then it was a big hassle importing the shape into CAD and everything like that. So now when I start a design, I think about the size range that I want it to be, and I kind of just put like a line for how long the blade would be and a line for how long the handle would be, maybe a line for how tall I think it should be, and then I just start, designing basically, just see what looks cool, and then after that, just make sure it works well folded. Usually that's a lot of moving the pivot around to different places and just seeing, if the edge is too close to the top of the handle closed, or if the tip sticks out of the back of the handle when it's closed, and stuff like that, where you can't really normally tell when you're designing that.
So you kind of start with the dimensions, where you're like, the knife is going to be about this size. Within this frame, what can I produce?
Yeah, and sometimes that changes. I have a restriction at my college that for people listening, that it's restricting knives that I carry to 2.5 inches or less in the blade length. And so I've attempted like many times to make designs that are 2.5 inches in blade length, and not much longer in the handle, just trying to make something that I would carry at school basically. But I usually just I end up making a design in that size that I like, and then realizing that it just won't work that small, and I just end up scaling it up. So it doesn't have to stick to the initial dimensions, and usually what happens is I scale it up.
Now, when you say that it doesn't work, it's still, I'm assuming that it still works in the sense that it closes and it functions, but you're saying that it doesn't work maybe in the sense of like the ergonomics are off or something, or what?
Yeah, I mean, just like looking at a design that I've made in a tiny little size, not only would I have to think about ergonomics, which is really small for a knife it's really hard for a knife that small. It's just not a lot of room to work with, which is why I'm impressed with the Pilar design, actually. But not only that, but then there's also standard sizes for everything in the knife community. So there's standard bearings that you need to use. They get only so small, and they don't get smaller than that unless you find some really special ones from somewhere.
Yeah. And it would increase cost to have to make something different.
Anything that you do that's out of the norm for a production company is going to increase their cost. And then also, the stop pin and everything like that. So just fitting all that into the pivot area is also one of the things that has made me have to scale up some designs as well. Yeah.
All right, I have one last pair of questions, and then we're going to talk more about this in the main topic because that is about knife design. Last pair of questions is, what is your favorite thing about the knife community, and what is the most frustrating?
Well, first one's easy. The best thing about this community is, the community, the people that I've met here, all of you. I've made a lot of friends in the community and just met a lot of really cool people. Got to try a lot of cool knives. And I've never been part of a community that's just, so generous and
trustworthy.
Trustworthy. I've never been sent several $1,000s of people's stuff before. So, it's just a really unique place. And I think it draws a lot of people that way.
Yeah, another thing I want to point out really quick, actually, to our listeners is that Will is actually really involved in the community, but other than knife design, he's actually one of my fellow moderators on the Knife Club Discord. So, yeah, I talk to him every day.
Yeah, I mean, I've sent a few messages on there. Just a couple.
Just a couple 100,000.
Yeah. I think I'm nearing 200,000.
You're like 165,000 or something like
that. Actually, Jake, you're catching up to me. You're always beating me in the message count.
Not currently, but I'm gonna get there.
Wait, where am I at? I should be at the top.
You're actually above me right now, Brian.
I know.
Really? Okay.
I'm the king.
Yeah.
Brian spams.
It's because all his stuff's out at heat treat. He has a lot more time, huh?
So anyways, back on topic. What's the most frustrating thing?
Yeah, I mean, there's not that much I don't like about the community, honestly. I guess maybe just the few scammers that are out there in the community. They got me once, but it's pretty rare, and they usually get called out really fast. So, and then I guess price gougers, people that buy the crew car to Sprint and then flip it for $400 or that guy that has 5 of them. Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's the only real thing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I have many things, but it's okay.
You're just a frustrated person, Brian.
I know. I get mad so easily. Whatever. It's not about me. Okay, let's move on. So, the next thing we're on to is upcoming knives and news, and we already mentioned this, but the very first thing we want to talk about is a new bug out, new iteration in 20 CV blade steel, and some interesting G10 handles. If you guys want to talk about that.
Who the heck thought this was a good idea? Why?
I think it's a wonderful idea.
These scales look like trash. I'm sorry.
But listen, you're already paying a big premium to have that butterfly on the blade. Now you can get one on the hand.
And pay probably another $80 for it.
Why?
2 times butterfly tax.
So basically the way this new bug out looks, the new 20 CV bug out, it's G10 scales, and the center part of the scales are a natural looking G10, like an undyed basically G10, and then there's a blue dyed portion of the butterfly in the middle of them, and it's very fuzzy looking. Like, it's not even like
yeah, somebody's been playing with Rit Dye.
It's not even like very defined. It's a very fuzzy looking butterfly, and then the bottom
You only know it's a butterfly because it's
Yeah.
transparent.
Yes.
And then-
No. Honestly, when I
wouldn't
saw
know what it
that,
was.
I thought, when they shoot the bat signal into the clouds and it's kind of hazy, like that's what I thought. I was like, wow, it's so hazy. It's like a bat signal.
Yeah,
But-
it really is hazy. And then so here's another interesting part of these scales, right? For some reason, the center scale, the center screw, right, next to the butterfly, it's like flush with the natural G10, like there's no blue outline. But on the little backspacer scale, to the right of that, they've got this weird blue outline to it, right? Yeah. Like I don't know why that's there. And then the bottom portion with where the clip would be, that's completely blue. It's weird.
It looks like they left.
It looks like it's
clip
rubbing
screws.
off. Like the blue coating has come off over time or something, but just not in a intentional way, really.
Yeah.
It's around the
expect these
clip
to be super
holes.
consistent.
It's the natural G10 color, and then
It looks bad, Benchmade. I know you can make good looking. I know you can make good looking G10 scales. I own a full sized Griptilian. I like my grip. It looks good. It's got G10 scale. It looks way better than this.
I can't believe
yeah.
that's
What
real.
pisses
That's
me
terrible.
off
there's
is the
there's no good G10, but this is just
That's
like
But if you look at the line on the back, it comes up about 3/4 of the way and then stops.
yeah,
Now,
right around the axis
here's
bar.
the most important thing we need to mention is the price.
How much
It
is
is $200.
No. What? Why?
No, well, that's not,
So
that's
hold on.
not the only thing. So it's $200, but it also has an HRC range for the 20CV. It's 58 to 60. Now I wonder what side of that it's going to be on. I don't know.
That's a pretty big variation.
But 58 to 60, I'm assuming it's going to be like 57, 58 probably. I don't know. Maybe I'll give Benjamin a little credit. They've done some 20CV okay in the past. But yeah,
not
the
that
price
bad.
either way is, let's compare it to other knives that we know of that are in M390. Like, what do you get at $200 for an M390 knife? Like,
Well, here's
Isham Abstruse.
that's one, yeah. I mean, right off
That's
the
in
bat.
full tie.
my the PM2 I'm carrying today, 20CV G10 scales. It was 145 on DLT when I bought it, and it was a sprint run.
You can get an M390 Tucson for like $40.
Well, that one's questionable because
That's-
Tucson M390 is kind of
Yeah.
questionable. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
Probably
the
not
best
really
comparison is
for me.
Spyderco, which is a comparatively popular production company in our community, right?
Yeah,
If
they've
Spyderco
got-
can, yeah.
They've got another creature as their insignia. So
Well, there are a few considerations for this price point. I'm not sure that it's completely unreasonable in my opinion. Just if you look at the standard grip versus the standard Griptilian versus the -1 variants with mill G10 and the 20CV blade, you see a similar price increase, right?
No, you're completely
And,
right. And actually, I want to connect this back to what we were talking about before, because the reason why it looks bad is because of Flightanium. And let me explain that. So, let's say you buy your traditional bug out about $110, okay?
Yep.
Now, let's say you buy Flightanium G10 scales. How much does it cost now? About $145, right?
35.
Jesus.
Okay. Now that means that for the 20 CV blade upgrade, you're paying about $55. Okay. When you look at it that way, it looks really bad, right?
And S30V is a fine steel. It's not like it's a bad steel to begin
Right,
with.
but it's because of the comparison to the secondary market G10 scales that already exist that it looks worse. Whereas if this got released in a vacuum against the original bug out with no other scales existing, I don't think I would have looked at it this way, but I calculated it in my head based on what I know are already available options.
I still don't think it would sell very well just because of that scale. I don't
listen to
know.
this, right? So I've got
Weird.
the full-sized Benchmade Griptilian pulled up, same one I have in 20 CV G10, and this isn't like just flat G10, like flat standard G10. They got little contouring and little milling line diamond things all over it, and they've got different. The inside is dyed blue and all that crap. And this is $178.50 on Blade HQ.
Doesn't that have liners too?
Not full liners.
Yeah.
but still.
So there's more material. It's more heavily contoured, It's got to be the RIT die, guys.
the RIT die.
That's
Custom
gotta
die
be
job.
that 30
You know what
bucks.
Blade HQ calls that color? They say it's green.
Call it green.
Like the Jade G10.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks jade. Didn't they call it
JG10.
natural?
Sort of.
I thought they called it
Jade.
natural.
Well, no. So
I've heard both.
see, the description says JG10, and then in the specs it says green. So I must assume that the other color is what they're referring to.
So is this MSRP price? How much was it? 200 something.
No, so the
I've heard that
MSRP is 230. The actual price on Blade HQ
What?
is 196.
Oh my
Oh.
god, you're
So
kidding
I thought
me.
230.
I mean, to me, this shows just how crazy the Flightanium prices are for G10 scales.
Yes,
Because
exactly.
if a company,
They've got to be just pumping them out.
Benchmade is a huge company, and if they can't even match their Flightanium prices, then I mean, yeah, it's amazing. I'm not sure how they do it, honestly.
So let me ask you guys this: do you think this new 20CV bug out will have the grinding that the current ones do?
Yes.
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I think what we're referring to is there's a problem where when the tang of the blade contacts the axis bar, it's extremely gritty. Now you won't notice this if you fully disengage it and let it fall shut, but if you try to manually close it, it's not going to be possible sometimes on some of these blades.
It feels like sandpaper
Right.
when you're closing.
Worse
it.
than sandpaper,
Finger,
honestly.
yeah.
So the reason why I think it's still going to happen is because it's still titanium. It's still titanium axis bar. The other axis locks all have steel axis bars, and they are perfectly fine. But
If I could replace mine, I would at this point.
There's
the titanium
another
version
consideration though, like it's not just the titanium, right? It's a combination because okay, my bug out is from the very first run of bug outs. I got it really soon after they came out, and it didn't have problems for I've had it for a year and it never had problems, and it still had the titanium axis bar. So what I'm thinking is it's some kind of machining chatter on the tang combined with the titanium axis bars maybe being softer than normal, because I put the like a newer titanium axis bar in mine, which never had problems before, and it started to have issues as well.
so basically, Will
but then
did a transplant.
Yeah, and I put my old titanium axis bar in the new one that was already having problems, and it ruined my axis bar that was having no issues before. Like it ate the bar diameter down significantly to where there was like a lot of vertical blade play.
Now,
That's
so
crazy.
let's separate these two issues real quick. So the first problem, for people who don't really understand what happens when titanium meets steel, it sort of can cause galling, which is like where it gets to kind of like sticky almost, right? That's why sometimes you see like lock stick between like a steel blade and a titanium lock bar that hasn't been properly treated. So what's happening is Benchmade actually coats their titanium axis bars, which I think is because they realize that if they don't coat it, there's going to be a problem when the steel and the titanium contact, right? Now, the reason why that's just blows my mind is because I don't see any benefit to titanium. Like, if you're covering it anyway, like you might as well just use steel from the beginning. If the reason why you're using titanium is to be rust proof, well, coating it makes it, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not seeing like why those things are happening separately. But the other thing is, that coating wears off. Like, you are constantly banging the knife into the axis bar. That's how the axis lock works. And so that coating was never going to last to begin with. So this is a problem that they should have foreseen and avoided, in my opinion.
Yeah.
To me, it's just a really strange idea because, I had a bug out for months before I even realized that part was titanium, because they just weren't advertising it like I thought they would have if it was titanium. Just, there's more cost and everything. And they claim, I can't remember where I saw it, but they claim it's for weight reduction, which is kind of funny because it's a tiny, tiny little part.
Weight
You
reduction.
can't weigh anything.
Yeah, so because the bug out's meant to be a super lightweight carry.
Then why not use titanium screws as well?
Yeah, well, they have
G10
their own
screws,
problems, but
Yeah.
so So it sounds more like a marketing thing to me, but then they didn't really market it either. So I don't know.
That's a cop
seems like a
out.
strange decision. All in all.
Yeah, definitely a weird decision for Benchmade to make. Like, I just don't understand it at all, really.
Don't try to understand it. You'll
get
drive yourself insane.
I don't understand anything about this knife. I was like, oh man, it's 20 CV. I can't wait to see what it looks like, and it looks like crap.
So we're all buying
Also,
it, right?
the silver body screws, I think that doesn't help either.
Yes, and I have one last horror story. So one of our friends on the Discord, Jay, sent me his bug out, and his bug out's axis bar, you know how they're supposed to be cylinders? They're supposed to be round. It's literally a square. It's a square from the impact of the blade on the axis bar has transformed it into a square over time.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it grinds away material because I think the tang is rough and the titanium is soft.
Yeah.
So on mine, it was turning in there, like it was turning in the little place in the slot, around and around, and that's how it got to be a smaller diameter. But I'm guessing that Jay's, it wasn't turning, so it was just scraping off one area and just making it square, which is
Good.
Yeah,
God.
yeah. So no. So what it did is it hit the axis bar over and over again in one spot, making it square because it wasn't turning, and eventually it moved. It made it so square that it started to turn. At which point another part got beat into being flat, and now it's a square. So this is amazing, Benchmade. Never do this again, please. Just use steel axis bars. They've worked for you forever. No one ever complained about. Well, some people still do, but most people don't complain about the steel axis bar. It's at least better than the titanium axis bar. So.
But Brian, they're so heavy.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't even actuate it. It's so heavy. I can't.
It's like the 2 gram difference, dude.
Okay.
All right,
It's
so
probably
let's move on
time.
to the next knife. The next knife we have is the Vero Impulse has begun shipping. Now, I know nothing about this knife, so it's all you guys.
I do. I actually bought one of these. So they're made by Best Tech. It's designed by this guy named Joseph Vero. The price is a little high, in my opinion, but I already bought it, so... the base price on these, $285. They only ran 100 of them, so if you missed them, I don't know if he's doing more in the future or what. But yeah, they've been shipping out the plain tie handle versions with either tie maskless hardware or anodized hardware. Mine's full anodized, so I don't have it in hand yet, but I will definitely be giving my impressions of it on the podcast briefly.
What steel are
weeks.
these?
These are in M390.
Okay, so
that's what I
M390. Look. All my quiet. All right, so M390. It's okay, full TI, anodized, and looks like a front flipper.
No, it actually has a you know the booze.
Oh! It has the. I see it now. Yeah. Okay,
like
okay.
a small-
squared off.
Yes,
weird.
Yeah.
Kind of like the old Quikens.
It also
way back
has
when they
a-
modified the Quikens to not have the flipper sticking out.
Yeah.
That's kind of
Yeah.
cool.
It also
Yeah,
has
those are neat.
a pocket milled out so you can Spidey flick it.
Word.
Yeah. It's
I like the knife.
It's like a
So-
weird square fuller.
Yeah.
So is this? How big is this knife? I can't really tell from this picture.
I can't find any stats on it anymore. I think it's like a 3.5
Okay.
inch blade. So it's a relatively large knife, considering the handle to blade ratio is a little.
So yeah, definitely the price is a little steep,
off.
comparatively speaking,
yeah.
to other Beztech knives that are also M390, also full TI, and also around the same size. It looks nice though, and there's obviously that designer premium. You have to pay the designer, so for his work. So that's also a factor. But it looks good to me. I mean, it's not for me personally, but it's one of those knives, like I said, well, like we talked about in previous podcasts, where I can be like, I wouldn't buy it myself, but it looks good.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, the design's really what sold me on
Very
it for
interesting.
sure. It's very odd, kind of like boxy looking. I'm curious to see how it'll be in
I
hand. but
think
we'll see.
I think the price has to do with the fact that this is his first collaboration and he only did 100 of them.
So they didn't. Okay, that's
I
a big
didn't think
factor
about the
too. If
batch
it's a small
size.
batch, right?
Yeah. Small batch just increases cost per unit.
Yeah,
A
people
lot.
people really underestimate the extent to which mass production lowers costs. Like, it is unreal. Like, because
Well, I think he could have ran more of these because these sold
Yeah.
out in one day.
but yeah, everyone knows that small batch means higher price, but people don't appreciate that how much it is really. Like, to give one example. I have some knives at Heat Treat right now. So if I send in one blade, it's $33 per blade. Like, it's ridiculously expensive to heat treat one blade, and that's not counting shipping, which is another like $8. So it's like $41 to heat treat one blade. If I send 20 knives in, then it becomes $10 per blade, so a third of the price.
Oh, wow.
If I said, that's only from 1 to 20. Imagine making 100. Imagine making 1,000. Like, the margins are so skewed towards obviously larger batches that I think people, when you see a small batch, you should expect a higher price and realize you're not getting gouged by the maker. He's not trying to rip you off. That's literally how much it costs for him to make it and make a profit. So that's something to consider.
With something like, production batches of a new design, there's just upfront cost with fixturing and prepping design or production lines for that design. So as you get into making more, the upfront cost is just divided by more and more.
Yeah, and there's one more thing too. Best Tech does not have no company has machines that are not being used. Okay, it's all capital, so they always have it being used. If you're making this knife, you have to make new fixtures and dedicate machines that were being used for other purposes to making that knife now. So there's a lot of reasons why the cost definitely is going to be higher than the knives I mentioned that were cheaper from the same company. I honestly believe that this is what it costs to make this knife at a decent margin.
Yeah, they're not making much profit off this knife, I feel like.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I'm getting ripped off at all on the price, or I wouldn't have bought it.
Yeah,
honestly.
yes, exactly.
It just seems a little high, and that may be just because of how saturated the market is right now with titanium M390 flippers.
Right. So I guess the way we could phrase it is it's a fair price, but it's still high relative to other knives that have different production sort of criteria.
Yeah, it's a very attractive
For
knife.
sure.
It's got an interesting grind on the front. I don't know what you call that. Tonto-esque.
Isn't it like a Japanese
It's
Tonto
something.
kind of? Reverse Japanese
Yeah, it kind of has the
Tonto.
same swoop.
It's almost
It
like a
looks cool, though.
Sponto.
It
It's
looks
almost like
cool.
a Sponto.
Yeah, I
what I'm
like
talking
it.
about?
Yeah, I could see
Yeah.
that.
Oh, you mean like the secondary grind at the tip?
Yeah.
It's like to replace a distal taper.
Mm-hmm.
You can also do that to get
Now-
to your thin tip.
Oh,
Who does the handwork? Does Beztech do the hand satin?
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, I believe so, or he wouldn't be putting out these, because he just got these knives in,
Okay.
I think, a week or two ago.
No, I was just
So
wondering
the hand
because
satin, some
I've
of
never
them are already
seen
going
Beztech
out.
do a hand satin, but I'm also not very well
The
versed.
anodizing is all him,
Yeah.
though. So he's doing all the anodizing and all of the assembly, I believe. But yeah, I think everything else is done by Beztech.
Very
So
cool.
next knife is next knife is also very cool.
Oh,
we
yeah.
got a mid-tech deadlock in the house coming. In-house gonna be completely made by the Hawks. If you don't know what the deadlock is, it is an out the front automatic knife, double action, so you can open it and close it, without any manual work. And the interesting thing about the deadlock, the reason why it's called the deadlock, I think, is because there's no play. Most out the front knives
that's the
have
reason.
play, just a little bit, depending on the quality, of a little bit of blade play, and the deadlock is known for having none. So that's what makes it really, really cool. That's what makes it the coolest OTF in my opinion, because blade play just bothers me. I know it's not a big deal. And I do want to stress that it is perfectly safe to have a little bit of blade play in your OTF, just based on design.
It's completely
None
natural.
of the ones I've had are like horrible.
It's just-
but if I could get this for like, if it's under $600 or $700, I'll probably pick it up. Just for that.
Play is just very.
that walk up.
I mean, blade play and out the fronts is just, for the most part, a given. It's just by.
Yeah, it's become
It's
like
because
a
of the
fact.
design.
Like, people
It's just
accept
because of
it.
the lock design, how it works. There's not really a good way, other than I don't really know how the Hawks are doing it, but I'm sure there's cost reasons why most companies aren't doing it the same way.
There is a disassembly video that I think Gavin did on YouTube. If you're interested in looking at the internals of it, it's a little bit long, but he kind of goes through and explains how all of that was done. I haven't had a chance to watch it, but if you're curious about how they get that lock up, that would be the place to go.
Yeah, definitely interested in the price, and it is truly an innovative design. So that is what makes it
Witchhawk
special.
does that all the
for
time.
all these knives that are just, the same thing every single time. This is a knife that is truly unique and may be coming to us at an affordable price. That is truly special. So, hats off to them.
Yep. That's interesting.
Yeah, and another company that I want to give some praise to is Quiet Carry. So Quiet Carry has released the Drift. It is one of the very few production Vanax folders out there. It won Best EDC Folder of 2019 at Blade Show West, and also got a lot of props in Stasa23's YouTube video. So, yeah,
people love this knife. It's crazy. Like, I haven't seen a knife get this much love in a long time, and I actually want one now just because of how good it looks. It just looks so cool.
I still don't like the design. I don't know. It may just be me, but the Vanax blade, the LC200N lock bar, that's like an awesome little touch. I've heard no bad things about it at all, and I think it's been a really successful launch for them.
Yeah.
Have they dropped the regular line at all yet?
No.
Jeez.
No. It was
So it's still just the urban EDC versions that are out there?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I was asking them before I got mine. I was asking them about it, and they just said that they didn't really know when it was dropping, so there might be some production delay or something like that.
Oh, wow.
And so we did talk about this knife before.
But we talked about it on the last podcast, I think, right?
Yes, we did. But I did want to note one thing, which is the fact that it does have a soft D10.
Yeah.
And so this is a matter of, to me, the way it's made is a little bit of a matter of preference, actually. Normally, I don't like a soft D10 at all, but the reason why I call it a little bit of a preference is that you can still very easily Spidey flick it out, even with that D10. It's just no problem Spidey flicking. But if you open it by your thumb, you can slow open it. No, you know how normally, like, if there's a harder D10, if you want to slow open it, you can't really because it'll jerk out? This one's very easy to slow open. So, it's kind of nice to have the ability to, like, quickly deploy and slowly deploy. Like, it does seem to be more of a preference thing. Like, there are, situations where that could be useful, obviously. So, I don't know. I think for all of its strengths, that being its only possible weakness is kind of a testament to it being an actually good knife.
Yeah. And it's gorgeous.
Yeah, and it's very pretty.
Yep.
Still looks like a Mordex to
Definitely
me.
been enjoying it.
No, it doesn't. No.
It looks like a Mordex.
I
it
agree with
doesn't.
Vex. It does look like a Mordex.
A bigger brain Mordex.
It's a little fair and
Mordex.
Yes. Okay, bigger brain, I'll accept it. All right. Next knife is the Pena Trapper. I couldn't find it's not that I couldn't find it. I was lazy and I didn't find what picture. Hey, you guys know what it looks like. All right, we talked about this
Where's
knife
the
before.
professionalism?
Wait, why is this one used? I wrote this because someone told me to write this.
I don't know who, but we can talk about it a little. So they, I actually just saw on his Instagram, they are dropping some more of them. I believe it's either Monday or Tuesday, so tomorrow or the day after at retailers. Pena does not have any more of them, so there's no more you can buy through him. This is probably going to be your last chance to get them. So if you're interested, you need to jump on it quick because they sold out very, very fast last time.
Having no money has truly opened my eyes to what I really care about in a knife, and
welcome to the club.
Yeah,
because I was interested in this, and then I was sitting here and I have like limited funds at the moment with the holidays coming up, so I was like, I'm gonna have to pass.
Yeah,
it.
same.
Like,
I know. I was just like, it looks nice though. I mean,
so.
I say go for it.
For
If you
sure.
like it, if you want a traditional knife that is fun to play with and has a better steel than a GEC, no offense GEC, kind of offense GEC. Anyway, use a better steel. But this is a great choice. I mean, I've handled his customs, and if the action is anything like his customs, it's a lot of fun. So
I've heard it's a little better actually, but we'll see.
I mean, I know the micarta is better. I've already heard accounts of people saying the micarta is grippier, and I know that the custom ones are all rubbed by hand and therefore are very slick, which some people don't like. So,
yeah, very traditional looking. It would be good for kind of like a gentleman's carry. So I think I said that. Last podcast or something, but.
It's a great design.
Yeah.
And made by Rhea, you can't really beat it. Come on.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Not much else to say on that one.
I want to save the next one for later.
Okay.
So let's talk about the CRKT Schwartz designs.
Schwarz. So it just means.
Oh, is it Schwarz or Schwartz?
No,
Schwarz.
Well, it's Schwarz. It means black in German.
But there's no T.
No.
Or did you mistype that?
No.
Oh, okay.
Wait.
I typed it, and I typed it correctly.
What do you mean? It's Schwarz.
But where's the T?
It's not misspelled, Brian.
I'm pronouncing
you're okay.
it.
It's just
pronounced Schwarz. It's the T, the Z. It's pronounced with the T.
It's a German thing.
No. Okay. Anyway, so
I bet he
so
didn't
we got some interesting designs here. So let's talk about them. So the first one I want to talk about is, thanks for the picture, whoever put this here. Is
You're welcome.
the new ones is the parascale. Sorry, I try to say that with a straight face. Okay, the parascale.
I know what Brian's getting for Christmas this year.
Parascale.
It's ugly.
Okay, listen. So,
It's ugly.
It's ugly.
so let's talk a little bit about what this knife is, so that our viewers can have a little image in their head. Okay, so imagine a sort of hourglass shaped handle. So there's a lot of swell on both sides.
Yeah, really sexy.
Yeah, and it's all covered in what looks like paracord wrap. Okay, that's why it's called the parascale, because you put the paracord on the scale.
If you click it, actually each scale is wrapped individually, and then it looks like it's assembled. This knife is CRKT.
Yes, yeah.
It's a CRKT. It's $130 MSRP for D2, and I don't even think it's G10. It might be FRN. I'm not sure.
It does have that new lock they're doing where you press on the pivot.
Yeah, the deadbolt.
Yeah.
It looks like a rubber band in the picture, like wrapped around it.
Yeah.
It's not an attractive. Which, to be honest, you could probably swap it out for another color. It's customizable.
Oh,
There you go.
customizable.
Don't be ungrateful about it. It's
Oh, imagine Flying
You don't have to
Palladium is
mess-
going to
you
be
don't have to
making
change out
a bunch
scales,
of different paracord colors.
for only $12 a piece.
So is this real paracord it's wrapped in?
As far as I can tell,
Real
yeah, look at the
paracord.
page.
We're questioning the paracord. That's bad.
It's like, what is it, like 550 paracord?
It's
I don't
like
know.
really
It's
weird.
it's CRKT. Who knows what's real and what's not?
So this is
You know why this knife is so expensive? It's all the time they have to wrap that paracord.
Oh yeah, that is an
Labor.
expensive. Is that retail?
That's
Okay,
MSRP.
but it's still pretty expensive.
Yeah, no, it better not be retail.
yeah.
this
It's
is
not
weird
gonna do
because the knife, the way it's kind of like, it's like the scales are designed like shoelaces. Like the paracord, it's not like a fixed blade that you wrapped paracord around where it's like you basically filled up the entire handle. It's like they've got these little
Yeah, you're right.
dead
shoelaces.
spots. Yeah, they've got these dead spots where it's just I don't know. It looks like
No, you're exactly right. It looks exactly like shoelaces. There's just you can see the black of the handle material in between each wrapping of the paracord.
I actually wonder if you can take off the paracord from this and it will still fit together properly from where it goes underneath the scales.
That's interesting, yeah.
I'm hoping they have cutouts.
Because this knife does not look
but
bad
this-
if it
No,
was
it
just
doesn't.
normal handle.
It's actually, it's a good design.
my money is on
that
no,
paracord-
Jacob. My money is no. This
Anytime
that
I
paracord,
think to
though-
myself, is this possibility that would make the knife infinitely better, like going to be a thing with CRKT? The answer is always no. Just streams disappointed and crushed.
Here's the question. What is the scale material, and is that what they're really using as the blade stop? The stop pin, basically.
That's tiny.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
because
the handle material, I think, is FRN. and
because
maybe G10,
I'm not sure if they have a stop pin
G10.
or if it's just for show, but it looks like they're using kind of like how the thumb stud is
studs.
the stop pin, like Kinder would.
Yeah.
There might be liners
This looks like it would
underneath.
sell really well at Walmart.
Yeah. Probably liners underneath. Yeah. So
Might hit the liners instead.
Doesn't look like a bad knife. That looks pretty decent.
Ooh,
Yeah.
it's
Now the
CRKT
next knife-
still.
It's still
so-
CRKT.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Yeah.
Well-
Most of their knives don't look decent, but then
Hey, if this were a Medford, it would be $600. You
D2.
guys should be grateful. In D2.
57 HRC too.
Okay, someone tell me about this.
It'd be literally the exact same knife for a higher price.
The next
So-
knife in the Schwarz line,
Yeah, someone tell me about that because I've never seen it before.
Overland. These are all designed by TJ Schwartz in Boise, Idaho.
Yeah, so the Overland was actually a design that he was going to do in collaboration with Millet. I haven't heard that it's canceled. But if you go on their Instagram back about a year and a half, they do have like a CAD rendering of this. And I was really, really excited because personally I really like the design. Y'all may absolutely hate it. But it's also smaller than I thought it was.
Sorry, can I say something? It's pronounced Boise?
Yes.
Yeah, Boise, Idaho.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
What? Wait, what is it?
We them boys.
No.
It's boys.
It's Boise. You're gonna get all of our Boise, Idaho viewers angry.
All two of them.
I'm sorry.
All two of them, yeah.
You know, the day, listen, the day that it's pronounced turquoisey, you can tell me that this is Boise. All right.
It is turquoisey. What are you talking about? Wait, hold on. How do you pronounce it,
What?
Brian?
Turquoise?
Turquoisey.
Turquoise?
What?
It's
Dude.
turquoise.
No, it's not.
Shut up.
Okay. All joking aside, this Overland it's 8CR13.
It looks good.
Shocker. And
It looks very
all the way through.
tactical.
Here,
I
wait.
love the
Listen,
design. I love the color scheme.
listen. My favorite part of the description of this knife on CRKT's website is the knife version of 4x4.
What?
I know. I saw that
What
and
kind
I
of
died. I don't know what the hell
What does
that
that mean?
means.
What does that mean?
It's
So
it's like
the guy,
It's tough.
it's like
the designer, posted it on Reddit when he first, I guess, created it, and I was talking to him a little bit about it back then, and he said it was Jeep inspired.
Mhm.
If you look on the handle, you can see the slots like from a Jeep grill.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's-
It
well,
looks like
it
a
is a-
Jeep.
It's
So-
called
See that
Overland
now.
because it's he's basing it on overlanding, which is basically off-roading.
That's, you know what? Look, that's not my aesthetic, but
Ah.
I think that's a
together.
cool idea, especially for a
respect
budget
it.
knife.
I'm gonna buy one.
No, that's a cool idea
I'm
for a
not
budget
joking.
knife.
I've wanted this knife.
We just
got to
get Brian to reblade it.
It looks pretty good. I like the knife.
and then get carved to
The
reduce
design is
Yeah.
fine. It looks
And the
comfortable.
lock side.
It looks like you have a nice cant for where your thumb's gonna rest. Like, it's
It's also an under 3-inch
Yeah.
blade, if y'all are curious about that.
This one's
I
was
got
always
nothing
hearing-
bad to say about it.
no, this one's an attractive knife, and it's cheap. MSRP is for $54.99, and it'll be cheaper on Blade HQ. So
Right. So price
Yeah,
looks
probably like
reasonable.
$40.
Design and idea behind the design sound reasonable. As long as the execution isn't completely borked somehow, I'm happy with it.
okay,
Now the next one.
The next one. This knife is hideous. Like I,
I
can't
thought.
stand.
Okay,
this
when I first
design.
saw a link of this, I just thought it was a clone.
it's
I thought it was a bad clone. That's what I thought it was.
Yeah.
I thought it was a bad.
Yeah.
What we're talking about to our viewers is the CRKT Thero, THERO. I'm spelling it out because everyone tells me to pronounce everything wrong.
Thero.
apparently.
I would pronounce
really?
it Thero.
Well, you guys don't like that?
I would say Thero
Okay.
as well.
It looks
hate
exactly
it.
like
It's
the
so
Millet,
ugly, dude.
whatever it's called.
Millet
Almost.
Torrent.
It looks exactly like
It does not
It
look
looks-
like the Millet
it's got
Torrent.
the same
No, it
handle.
It just looks.
Look,
it
look
just
how
looks
much
so
that
cheap.
flipper tab
I think it
sticks
looks
out.
The
better.
blade looks a lot less expensive, in my opinion, because it doesn't
Look
have
at the
that.
flipper tab. It's horrible.
Oh no!
It's
Okay,
angled.
let me
The
say what
flipper
I
tab on
like.
the Torrent is flat and it ruins the
Okay,
design.
let me say what I like.
What was the
So
design? The hole? It's awesome.
Yeah, the blade hole on the original one, it has like some milling in there. Just looks a lot.
It's like
better, in my
unusable. You
opinion.
can't even use it, can you?
nah, it's just for looks.
Yeah, I
just for
can.
looks.
I can middle
This
finger
is
flick it.
basically
No
the
problem.
Millet Torrent with a different blade and
Bigger brain.
also obviously
they
different
ruined it.
materials. They've got.
8CR13
Is this
MOP
real
Torrent.
carbon fiber?
I think it's G. No, I think it's G10.
No.
That's not real
It
carbon.
says.
Because that
It
knife.
says.
Oh, Echo.
This says tough glass reinforced nylon handle features a single layer carbon
okay.
fiber underlay for a prehistoric look.
It's
it's a
the
sticker.
laminate.
A
Yeah.
prehistoric.
It's
Dinosaur?
You know all the carbon fiber dinosaurs.
the description.
It does look like a dinosaur.
This wasn't mentioned during the Millet Torrent. Did he like when he's marketing this to CRKT? Was he like, you know what?
No,
guys,
this is how he opens it. This is literally first line of the description. When the ground trembles, you know it's coming. The CRKT Thero.
That guy needs a raise.
I want to point out this
making
is
those
a 3-inch
And how
blade,
long
too.
is the
It's not like
blade?
it's giant. 3 inches.
3.083 inches, so it's a little bit above.
They need to change that
Sounds
description.
ground trembling. Yeah.
It's a little shorter actually than the original torrent.
That's the best knife on the dang screen. Let's be
when the
honest.
ground trembles.
Vex,
How about
Three-inch
if you
knife.
buy one of these,
you know what they should do for the
if
real
you buy
one?
one of these, I'm gonna grill you.
They should change. They should change the description of the real millet torrent to when the bed's thumping, you know it's coming.
I like
I'm gonna buy one of these too. Just to
I like
do a
the
comparison.
the blade
genuinely
finish on
curious.
it is just oxide.
Oxide. That's
Yes.
custom.
That's the blade finish. It's 8CR13.
Yeah.
I mean, actually, no, it's 8CR14 MOV.
Ooh.
Okay, you
Oh,
get some
sounds like
sorry,
stainless.
guys.
It's
we got
8CR14.
one
You
more.
know, the price on
Wow,
this.
we got
is-
one more
The
cur.
price on this is really good because the milling and the FRN probably costs a fortune.
Well, if it's FRN, it's
Just
just
those
cast
little
in.
Jeez.
It's just molded.
Will, think about it. It's expensive. I'm trying to make this. I'm trying
So wait,
to sell
that's-
this knife
that's
to people,
injection molded,
and you're
right?
You're killing it.
If it's FRN, then yes.
Okay, yeah. So, all right, next
so-
one. Next one. I don't want to talk
Well,
about it anymore.
hold on. Sorry, I just have one more thing to say
Okay.
because there's one concern with this, right? Is that if they got permission for to use this design
Oh yeah, I forgot about
from
that.
Or
Millet,
the overland.
yeah,
Yeah.
this design's already been sold before, so it
The
seems.
blade's different.
I'm just hoping they asked
the
Millet.
blade's
okay.
different,
but-
you could
Yes. So we're gonna
It's a
talk
little
about this in
ice-y.
the main topic. Okay, we will talk about this in the main
Okay,
topic.
I'll hold off. I won't say anything.
Yeah. So
about price.
we'll get back to this. All right. So okay, let's talk about the next knife. Steel Will Cobalt.
This is Will's favorite knife on the list.
No,
This knife is pretty and
Really?
ugly at the same time.
I know you just said it perfectly, dude. I want one. I'm gonna get one
Are
of
you
these
guys being
too.
serious right now?
Oh no.
It
Yeah.
looks like
I love
a
it.
Flipper McBee a little bit.
It just looks like a worse
it looks
version
like
of the
an
That
Arius.
Isonzo.
size. I
It
mean,
looks
yeah,
like an Arius.
It's terrible.
an Arius.
Listen,
It's just
It's the
Can I
micro
get it?
Arius.
it's a little small.
can I get it in a different color other than?
Yes.
Can I get it in a different color other than hunter orange? Like,
I mean, yeah, you can get it Cerakoted.
no, I. What? Oh,
Just
yeah. I
spray
guess I
paint
could. Yeah, I guess.
Have bench
It's a
paint rid
Halloween
dye
knife,
for you.
yeah.
Yeah. This knife is a.
for
Come
$80.
back with a
This
butterfly.
knife is a 2-finger grip. Your index and your middle finger and your thumb. I guess. So I guess that's 3.
If you're brave, there's a choil.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they Wait, no, don't you just stick your whole finger in that hole in the blade?
Yeah, there you go. In a reverse grip, your pinky goes through there.
What's? Oh, God, why is it so ugly? Why is the clip so ugly?
I
Can we
like
just
it.
skip it?
The
I
clip's
hate
pretty
it so
rough.
much.
I like
Look
it.
at the lanyard hole. What is that? Oh, I can't. Moving on.
It's so
It's-
ugly.
It's like a little tail, Brian. Be careful. Be
Oh,
gentle with it.
what is this? What is this? This. Hold on. Let me think about how to pronounce this.
Sargus.
That sounds powerful.
Yeah, Sargus.
The
Yeah,
steel
yeah,
wheel
yeah.
Sargus.
Sounds powerful.
Yeah,
This is
Sargus
cool.
okay.
Another new
I like
one.
the
I'll
hot
accept
pink color they're going with this.
That's pink?
Your monitor is screwed up. dude.
That's
Bruh.
red. That's red, bro.
Yeah, that's
No, I
great.
think I think my eyeballs are just messed up.
Echo, if it
Let
were
me
hot
let me
pink,
let me look on my
like,
phone and see if it looks different on
You
my
just found
phone.
out he's colorblind.
No,
It's red. too.
Echo. I hate to break it to you, but
yeah. Hold on. I'm gonna open it up on my phone. Like,
okay,
his eyes are
this
messed up. This is
reminds
sad.
me of
This
something,
is
and I
depressing
need
to
to
find
figure
out
out
on
what
the
it
podcast.
reminds me of.
I like it.
Hold on.
Every Persian knife ever.
Well, something worth mentioning here is with you see both of these new designs, they're G10 and D2, which is kind of a mixture of what they've done in the past because their first models were FRN and D2, and then
And D2.
their G10 models were M390 and D2, and G10. So, lately it seems like they've been moving away from the M390 stuff and, taking the lower end steel and the higher end handle material. I think it's just interesting. They've kind of moved
All right.
up in price a little bit,
Yeah.
kind of in between.
I still think it's a
their
good price.
old price points. Oh yeah, for sure.
So
Look at that.
what am I looking at? Oh,
You're looking at
Oh,
the
shoot.
Spyderco. Yeah. Yes.
The Mongo.
oh shoot!
Yes.
It's
That looks like it hurts in your hand.
It looks like the same knife.
This is exactly the
It's-
same,
it-
except for that little tail piece.
Okay,
on it.
what I just
It's a
posted
shark.
is the Spyderco Mamba, and if you look at the Spyderco Mamba and compare it to the Sargus, it's literally the Spyderco Mamba without the Spidey hole.
And there's little holes in the back that I hate.
Okay, yeah,
that
but
I've only
the
now noticed.
profile is like the exact same.
Oh yeah,
It's like the exact same.
The grind, I guess.
I think
is
it's
different.
smaller. I think the Mamba's larger.
Yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
just saying, maybe it's just the fact that it's. We'll talk about designs and stuff later, and well, actually, we're on the main topic after this one, so maybe we should just talk about that right now.
By the way,
Okay.
my monitor is a little bit whitewashed, but it still looked like a little bit pink on my phone. So
It's a little bit
it's
pink.
red.
I'll give you that.
It's red.
Right. Your eyes are.
I
Decent.
can't. I don't
They're
see
decent.
colors. I just see in sounds. So I don't know.
All right. So our main topic has a bunch of different elements or parts, but it's basically about knife design. And the first thing we want to talk about is what makes a design original. So what do you guys think?
gonna be hard.
Originality.
It's dead. It's dead.
Yeah, so for example, I brought up the fact that the Sargus looks similar, maybe too similar to the Mamba. Okay? And it's crazy because sometimes you look at a knife and you go, I've seen that before, even though you've never seen it before. But the truth is you kind of have because, it's an iteration of a sort, right?
Every knife is the same.
Right, so...
Maybe that's the boundary, right? If it makes you think like you've seen it before, then maybe that's when it becomes unoriginal.
Yeah, but maybe my memory is just too good,
Well, I don't think something being unoriginal is a bad thing, because obviously when you have such a saturated market, you're going to have very similar knives show up, just like how in the theatrical market you get very similar movies showing up
True.
50
Yes.
years
Yep.
later. So
Now there is a murky area there, though. Actually, even more dangerous than murky.
that's what
Is
I was
that
going
in
to
the-
touch on, actually. It was like what you're saying with murky area. So like the Sargus, the steel wheel Sargus, it's close, but like it's different enough that I could be like, it's kind of a different take than the Mamba. But when you go back up to the Thero, man, that handle,
It's the exact same.
It's literally
It's
the
the
exact
torrent.
same.
Yeah.
But the same.
It is the
Like
torrent.
I'm sitting here
yes.
looking at my torrent now, and it's this
Right.
knife. Like there's
So let's go head
You can
first.
say whatever you want to about the blade.
Right,
change,
let's
but-
go head first into that. So, one of the first parts of our main topic is the reselling of iterations of the same design to different companies. Now, where has this happened? I don't want to name names exactly, but since we're talking about the Thero, and this is a possible example of that, we're going to assume, for the sake of this podcast episode, that CRKT and purchased the design from TJ Schwartz, right? And that Millet Torrent purchased their design from TJ Schwartz, so they both own their respective designs. Now, the problem is they look so similar that it's almost as if he sold the same design to two different companies. Okay? And so the question is, at what point does reselling iterations of the same design cross the line into you are basically just selling the same thing to different companies who are now making their own things that look too similar and are starting to...
I think
Well,
even
no.
one. I think if you resell
You
one
gotta,
design, it's just it's too
you
much.
can't like tout it that much, because it's not in the same price range, right? If it's the same designer,
I understand that, but it's still like, okay, if it were like a Millet CRKT and him like collaboration, sure,
Right.
wouldn't have a problem with it. But this is kind of screwing over Millet, not as directly as like another one in the same price range, but it's still something that they paid for.
I wouldn't be happy
and
if I
while
was
they're not
Millet.
going to lose customers on it,
Yeah.
I'd be pissed
Well,
off.
I mean, if he asked them and they gave him an okay, then
Right
you
now,
know.
so we're not gonna cast aspersion. This is all theoretical. So we emailed
we don't know
Millet asking them if they were okay with this. We haven't gotten a reply yet, so we will update you in a future podcast when we do get a reply. But I'm probably gonna call him tomorrow, Millet. Just to make sure we have some information for the next podcast. But theoretically speaking, if Millet did not explicitly give the okay for this, do we think? What do we think? Right? Like, what do we think should happen?
I would. I think that they should. I don't think there's it's probably not any legal action they can take, but they have every right to be upset about it if that's the case.
I think the designer really, like, if he's the one.
Yeah, it is. It's not like CRKT's fault.
He's the one that said, take this design. Well,
I mean, how can CRKT not know that it's his portfolio, right? Like, how can they not know that this design is already, the mainstay of another company?
But do they care?
You know what I'm saying, though, that they should care, right? Morally.
Oh, they for sure should, because they're a massive company. But
like, for a company like CRKT that makes its bread and butter collaborating with people's designs, they have to be more careful to make sure they aren't copying a design or taking a design that's already taken than other companies.
And touching on that as well, the Overland, like I mentioned, that's been posted before by Millet. It hasn't come out yet. I don't know if it's going to, but they've mentioned a collaboration with Schwartz as well, and so that's two.
That's two.
I'm guessing at this point the both of those are.
Do you guys remember? This isn't like the first time CRKT's done this. Do you remember when? This is in like the 90s or something like that, but maybe the early aughts. But do you remember when CRKT had that prototype of a Sabenza?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What about it though?
Well, I mean, I don't know. That's basically the same thing as this.
It was the plastic frame.
But that's
right?
a little bit different.
I guess so.
Because
worked with CRK
it's like
on that one.
the designer is making it. The designer is like the company and the designer, right?
The CRKT Sabenza is okay because Chris Reeve makes the knife for his company and decided to give the design to another company.
That's true.
So
that would be like Millet saying it's okay.
Right. So that would be perfectly fine with me.
I guess
the issue is
it's
the designer
because he's
is a third party.
Yeah, third party.
Right.
Yeah. So
I would say the correct way to go about this would be like Burnley did with the automatic Quaken. Like it's a Boker, ProTech, and Burnley thing. Even though I believe ProTech made those.
Yeah.
Sure.
Honestly,
right. Any involvement, like
I just think this isn't a big deal just because CRKT, this is not even on the same level as the Torrent at all. I could see if like Riot was making it, then yeah, that's a huge competition between Milla and Riot. But this is, you can't buy this and say, oh, this is just like the Torrent, because it's not. I mean, it's the same design handle, but you're not going to buy this over the Torrent unless you're on a super budget.
I don't think it's taking away their sales, probably not. But I don't know. Millet would have paid for that design. Like they would have bought the rights to it. So it's kind of like someone's,
and for that to get resold.
It's like selling.
Disrespectful.
It's like selling a knife to someone and then selling that knife to someone else when the other person already has it or something.
Right. No,
it's just a little strange.
I think it's exactly like that. And beyond the impact market wise to Millet, I think it's just a moral question of this is just not okay. But there is actually a market question involved. I think this is something people underestimate to some extent. When you see an expensive knife in cheaper materials, like not as well done, it cheapens your internal image of that knife as well. Like this might sound really theoretical, but this is actually what happens in marketing. Like this is why when you sell like underwear or whatever, you want like the hottest people to wear it, right? Like all that stuff matters. It's all marketing. It's all how you see it in your mind affects whether or not you want it.
No, I just thought underwear was an interesting example for you to first go to.
Oh, it's because my dog has my underwear ads, but obviously. That's fine.
Okay.
So, no, he just likes socks and stuff like that. Anyway, so you want I don't even shop. You guys know that. I've never bought my clothes in my life. But anyway, when you buy clothing, like, or anything like that, you try to associate it with expensive things, right? Like, cars. Like, don't cars have like models that they like women who try to sell it that way too? I don't know. All I'm trying to say is when you see a popular design like the Millet Torrent and it's cheapened by, cheaper materials and it's sold as a legitimate product, I think it lowers people's view. I actually have a good point. Sorry. I'm going to tangent my own tangent. The you know why the CRKT Sabenza didn't happen, right?
Why? It cheapened the Sabenza.
Exactly. It cheapened the Sabenza. Chris Reeve thought that if CRKT released this crappy Sabenza version, it would make his own knives look worse. Okay, so this is a real thing that people think about, right?
That's true.
Like he rejected a huge offer from one of the biggest production companies in the budget market just because he thought it would hurt the image of his knives. This is not a joke, right?
Yeah,
like
that's fair.
Well, think about it this way. What if your first experience with the Millet Torrent design was this? You're like, okay, let me look at this one. If I like this one, I'll add a 0 to the cost and buy a real one. What if you get it and you hate it? You know, you're like, oh god, it's a problem. Your first thought isn't, oh, it's bad because it's a CRKT. It's like, oh, there's a flaw with this.
Exactly, and people can say, oh, I'm going to be totally neutral and unbiased, but it's like, you can't. If you get a design and you hate it, there's no way you cannot, attribute some of those bad qualities to the real thing. Like, just mentally, you can't do that.
This is probably a good segue to circle back around to the Clone Wari.
Yes, I didn't want to talk about that because I knew if we talked about it, we would have to talk about clones in general. But basically, we did mention before that a clone version of the Shamwari, 3.5 inches in Damascus or M390, was recently released on AliExpress. And so, this is sort of the opener into, I guess, a discussion about clones in general. So I want to start that question, the topic off with the question, in your opinion, what makes a clone bad? Because that's a broad question, and we can sort of...
Like morally?
Yeah, generally speaking, what makes a clone bad? Why do we have a problem with clones, or whatever?
I have a problem because there's no money or credit going to the original designer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Exactly. That's how I feel as well. Especially as an aspiring designer, I had to think about it. I've had clones in the past, but when I really got into it, I had to think about, how would I feel if someone made a clone of my design and started selling them to, all sorts of people. And, it's just like taking money out of the designer's pocket because, it's a missed sale and it's not supporting the designer.
What I'm going to do during this discussion is I'm going to play devil's advocate. And I'm also going to try to parse out the different sides of the argument. Okay, so I'm going to say that beforehand. These aren't what I'm going to say is not my opinions on this.
Well,
okay.
Actually, I think Vex, didn't you buy the Clone Wari?
Yes, sir.
So I feel like Vex, maybe you should talk about the goods of clones or what you like about clones.
Honestly, maybe not the goods, but instead.
The reasons why you buy one?
Yeah.
Right, or the mitigating factors. What makes certain clones different from others. Like, there are levels.
I will say this one is different.
Yeah,
the reason why I buy clones, I've never bought a clone before. This is my first clone I'm going to buy. Hopefully it ships and I actually get it. But anyways, the reason I buy them, because I can afford most knives, is because I'm not going to buy a sham for $2,000. I'm not. Mm-hmm. So that's the only reason I'm buying this, just because I know for a fact I will never pay that much for a sham.
That makes sense because to you and to an abundance of people, it is basically impossible to it's infeasible
unless
to
you
buy.
go to a show or you're get on his books and pay him a whole bunch of money. That's the only way you're gonna get one.
Okay, so let's do some point counterpoint. So point one that was made is that there's no credit going to the designer. In this case, who made the design, so the credit is going to the designer. Now the second point is, what about money, right? Is it taking money from the designer's pocket? In this case, you're saying you wouldn't have bought it anyway, so it's not taking money from Gareth Bull's pockets.
Right.
I don't think it is.
I would buy a sham at table price. I for sure. Mm-hmm. But you can't.
It's infeasible.
Right. So there's also
that's where this clone comes into play.
I guess the first thing we should talk about is the element of scarcity and price. So do we think that clones are different in terms of their moral problematics when there's very is it low? If you say low scarcity, does that mean there's not that many?
Yes. Well, okay. So no. Sorry.
Or high scarcity, right?
High scarcity means there's less.
Okay, so when there's very high scarcity and the prices are also commensurately high, more than you would ever be willing to pay or afford, do we say clones are less problematic morally?
Yes,
I do. But really, it's such a rare case that it hasn't happened all that much. There's a few for sure. But generally, even with like a Grimstone Norseman, those have been cloned forever. They're difficult to get, or they were, but they're still very doable. You see them pop up almost daily on Knife Swap. You almost never see a sham, and if you do, it's 3 to 4 times.
So what would your thresholds be in terms of how scarce or how expensive a knife needs to be before you say, okay, you know what, maybe I would consider a clone here because it wouldn't hurt, the designer anyway in terms of financially?
If I can't get one and they're like double retail, then I'd consider it.
Well, for me, I don't have a big problem with other people buying it, but just personally, like, being involved in design, I just wouldn't feel right about a clone of my stuff being out there, even if, because like Gareth Bull, I don't think he's creating the scarcity on purpose. Really, he's
handmade knives.
Yeah, they're just really hard to make a lot of. So
I will argue with you a little bit there. In his customs, for sure.
Yeah.
I agree with you completely. But this production run he has coming up, I've heard he's only going to do a couple hundred of them. He has the funds, the means, and the name to sell much
okay,
more.
But also that ties into our previous discussion about cheapening the knives, right? If there's a ton out there that are cheap, how many people are going to go out and buy his customs for that design?
And
so he has to think about
sure.
that as well.
That's a genuine problem people have with when you have a custom knife and you offer that same custom knife as a production version, it really does cheapen your knife, in my opinion. I think the like everyone is predicting that secondary market prices are going to go down when the Wii Shamwari comes out.
I think the Wii is also going to sell it very quickly, and those prices are going to go up.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So, but he wants that to happen in a sense.
But
right?
I don't think personally that his knives are worth the $2,000 that they're going for in the secondary market. I just think they're drastically inflated.
Yeah,
and
that's the problem.
Well,
they're like triple the price.
Yeah,
almost.
It's you just have to raise the price until only the people that want it the most are willing to pay that much, right?
And that's the thing, is he's not raising these prices. This is a secondary market he has no involvement with. So people blaming Gareth Bull, they're wrong.
This isn't his fault.
It's not his fault at all. I would have bought the Wii version if it looks good.
It's not his fault for the
I don't like the way the
prices
Wii version looks, honestly.
I don't like the finish on it, but I've wanted a sham for a long time. If I can get one and support him, I would prefer that every single time over a clone.
Now,
even though he's not a great person from what I've heard, I would still much rather support an evil designer than a cloning company. Just personally.
Right. So we've talked about how you need to give credit, which most clones are giving credit to the original designer nowadays. Like they're saying they're actually trying to capitalize on the fact that it was designed by someone well known, right? So credit, I don't think that's a very strong point personally. Financially, I think it's murky. Some cases are more severe cases of competition than others, where they actually take a share out of that market and they take a bite out of the pie, right? But are there any other arguments you guys think for why clones are bad in the knife community?
I don't think they're bad. I think the counterfeits are bad, where that has the logo and they market them as the real deal. Clones themselves,
yeah, I think we can all agree on that.
You have to go out of your way to buy a clone. Let's be honest. And to me, I think clones don't hurt the maker. They hurt the maker in the sense of he's potentially not making that money. Yes, I agree with that. But if it's a clone, Shirogorov custom division, you probably weren't going to buy that in the first place, just because you're not going to spend $2,000 when you can spend $300 on a clone custom division. Same with the sham.
So let's say not a custom division, but let's say, for example,
just a F3R, just a normal.
Let's say a D2 Greenthorn Shirogorov. Okay, so these are about, I think, $70 to $90, and so can we make the argument that someone might pick that up and say, let's say two scenarios. So one, they pick up the Greenthorn $70 and they go, wow, this is amazing. Okay, this is excellent quality. The other scenario is they pick it up and they think it's not very good. Okay,
yeah.
So we can think, all right, let's start in the first scenario and branch out how the average customer might interpret that. Okay. The first way to interpret it is a positive way. You can say, okay, if this Greenthorn is good, how much better is the Shiro? I better get that. I want to save up and get that. That's a nice scenario to imagine. But another possibility that makers are worried about is them going, okay, if I can get the Shiro in D2 and titanium for like $90, and a real Shiro is an upgrade in the blade steel, but for $500 more. Is that really worth it, right? So they start to think about worth and, how much something is valued in a different way, right?
Yeah.
So that could be a potential concern for a maker, in my opinion, where they can say, the calculus that people use in terms of, deciding how much a knife is worth is going to be shifted by, sort of the unfair competition of the way a clone is made, right? There's no R&D. They are mass produced by companies that have a lot of free capital in China. The shipping is free. It's paid for and subsidized by the Chinese government.
Material cost is way low, yeah.
Material cost is way lower. There's no shipping of the materials. There's titanium everywhere in China, apparently. So when I think about it in that way, and the D2 is also everywhere, right? China D2. So when I think about it that way, I feel like the price calculus is sort of twisted in a way that isn't fair to the original maker, or might not be fair to the original maker. So that's the first scenario.
It's not for sure.
Yeah. So
especially when you're considering the R&D, like you said, the design, all that work. Will knows how much time it takes to design a knife. If a company just took all that from you, all that effort, all that time, everything you've put into it, and kind of was like, what, we're just going to steal this. It would probably piss you off.
All the effort, all the time, and the fact that, they don't need to pay like royalties or anything, like
exactly. You're not getting any money.
Right. So it seems that's the first scenario. There is a second scenario, which is the scenario. The scenario is if the knife is bad. Now we know greenthorns are pretty well made, but let's pretend you get a greenthorn and it's not very good. Okay, that's not Shiro's fault, right? They don't make it. So you get the greenthorn, it's not very good. Positive side, maybe someone thinks, oh, this is crap, but maybe the real Shiro is better. So I'm going to get that, right? Unlikely. Yeah. What's probably going to happen is you get it, you think it's crap, you think, how much better could the real one be anyway? I'm going to get something else completely. That's what I think is going to happen. So I can see that, in either case, even when you weren't going to, even if something is in a different budget completely, right, $70 versus a much more expensive Shirogorov, it can still hurt the maker, which isn't fair because, it's their design. They should be the ones who are allowed to make it. That's one counter argument I'm seeing right now. So I just want to know what you guys think about that.
I don't know. I'm just so torn on clones, really. So
it's a big gray area. It really depends on your personal feelings towards it, the availability, the price, the materials. There's a bunch of factors that go into it. I generally go towards the side of I don't have any problem with anyone else doing it. I'm not gonna shame you or anything like that. Personally, they're not for me in most cases. The sham is a bit of an outlier for me, honestly, because it's like y'all have said, it's $2,000 to get one. It's very difficult to even get one at that price. So it's tempting to pick up a clone for $150. So I guess
it's just really the clone just came out at a bad time.
If this had come out a year or two ago, I don't think there would be nearly as much.
The timing was definitely not good. I mean, it's good for some people and it's not good for Gareth Bull and we obviously.
Now.
Yeah, I still don't think they're gonna have a problem.
No, exactly. That's the thing is that's my whole argument with clones is there's been CRK Sebenza clones forever. There's been mixed Strider clones. There's been Hinder clones. You still see all those knives, the real versions, sell out all the time. I don't think they hurt at all. I don't think they hurt the company or the individuals ever.
Yeah, no, it does. I think so. The way I'm seeing it personally is I think it kind of depends. Like Mixed Strider himself has said he doesn't care about clones. They don't hurt his market.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, can I foresee a situation like I described where clones, in one way or another, start to impact the maker's sales, like to the point where they start to notice and care? I think it could happen. It would depend on the price of the clones, for example, the quality, etc. But it could happen. And so when that happens, what do you think a maker should do? Because they can't sue China.
Good luck with that. They don't give a shit.
Yeah, exactly. So they can't sue. So what do you think a maker should do when they start to notice that a clone is hurting their sales to a noticeable degree? Now, you shouldn't do what Gareth Bull did and just go on a rampage about how. Definitely don't do that.
That is the worst thing.
That is the last thing you should do as a maker is start to insult the Chinese about clones and stuff. Just don't do that.
Pointing out all the flaws in your clone is not That's just helping them at this point.
There's right. So don't do that. But what you can do, I think, is just be candid about it. Just make an Instagram post. Say, hey, look, and this is assuming your sales are actually being hurt, right? You can just say, look, I have a lot of these knives available. They haven't sold out. I know there are clone versions that are very popular right now that people are purchasing, but they're hurting my sales a lot. So I would really appreciate if you want the design, please purchase it from me. And this is different because they are available. It's not like the Shamwari, right? So really the argument would be it's only going to matter if they're not sold out, right? Because if all your stuff is sold out, you can't really argue that clones are hurting your market because you have nothing more to sell anyway.
Well, there's other options. There's other options, like depending on the amount of headroom that they have on profit, they could try and decrease the price of the knife to try and entice the consumers more to buy theirs rather than the clone.
Or offer a coupon code.
I'm going to argue against that real quick.
Yeah, we've seen how crazy the prices of clones can get, and for like the quality and stuff, and that's also hurting their business, right? They're making less money if they do that.
Right. So that's still hurting the maker, and also
I'm saying that it might be what they would have to do because that's just maybe market-wise. Right. Just that's the way the market works. You can't. I don't know. It's just gonna happen.
Well, sort of, like, because when we say market, normally we say markets have rules, right? There's no such thing as a fully free market. So we have like intellectual property, and we have laws about that. Now, some Chinese companies respect those laws?
Well, that's what you just said. You can't sue China. So
so maybe they have to do that. But the question is, maybe they'll get more community support and less people will buy clones and turn to the maker instead if they make a post about it saying publicly, look, my knives are not sold out. People are still buying the clones, which means they like the design, right? It would help me out a lot if you were to support a legitimate maker, like the person who actually designed the knife, rather than people who, I guess you can say, stole the design, right? I think that is the approach I would take. Now, this is just a hypothetical because as far as I'm aware, there has not yet been a maker or company who has been so impacted by clones that this is the type of situation they've been forced into. I've not seen that yet.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah. And also that's, I don't know how effective that would be, really just asking people to stop.
No, well, yeah, it's not going to be that effective, really, to be honest.
It's not going to do nothing.
And that's basically all they can do, right? There's not much you can do about it.
For a handful of people, it might put it in perspective for them, like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do this because it's negatively impacting these sales. But a lot of people aren't.
A lot of people aren't going to care, but there might be enough people who care that it makes a difference for the maker. This is just me saying... Yeah,
it would matter to me if it were
right. Like if I read an Instagram post about a maker who said, "Hey, my design has been popular, but unfortunately, no one's been buying it from me," I'd be like, "Yeah, there's no way I'm buying a clone of that design ever."
Yeah, exactly. You just have to go about it in a respectful manner, and
right. Don't freak out.
Yeah, Gareth Bull did it in a good way. Besides going on Reddit, he reached out to a production company and asked them to make a production run. That's the best possible way.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Make your...
Like, he did all the right things except for the Reddit part, honestly.
Yes. Yeah. If everyone is stealing your pie, make a different pie, right? If you can, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. But, I think that's enough about clones to some extent. I do want to talk about a little bit more about design in general now. Clones are sort of, obviously always a murky area. This is also going to be a murky area. So... I want to talk about the difference between designs, like original designs, and patterns. And what a pattern is when you look in, traditional and... Okay. When you look at traditional and kitchen knives, there's different patterns of knives, right? There's like, santoku or, gyoto or, things like that. And so...
Sanmai.
Is there... Is there a point where you think... that for some knives you can't clone, right? Like kitchen knives can't be cloned because they're just established patterns. There's like a way that the blade is shaped and there's a name for that shape already. Like, what do you think there?
I think you should just pay homage. That's what you should do. Like, if you're taking in a design from a maker or a certain, I don't know, anything, you should at least reach out to them and ask you could do it first. That's the bare minimum.
I will say there's an exception with like a traditional pattern. Like there's set patterns for traditional
right. Like
knives,
so, for example, I wouldn't say
that have been for a while.
Well,
what's an example?
Like we're talking about at this point, we're just talking about blade shape, right? Like basically, I mean,
well, if the traditional patterns are full designs, but I think it's like a time thing, right? They've been around forever.
Yeah, exactly.
So at that point, I mean, even patents expire.
True.
So,
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Like with Benchmade, like a couple years ago, we would have considered it probably a bad thing if a company used an axis lock. Nowadays,
it's free now.
Well, it's legal, and I mean, it's been around forever. I think that's like, I don't know. I was trying to say, I forgot.
No, it's fine. Well, like when
look. All right. Before Echo says the podcast is getting too long and we need to wrap it up. I must mention this because it's been something that's been bothering me, like, just in my head for a little bit, actually, just because it's an interesting philosophical question, I guess. But, I posted a picture of a rebladed bug out on Reddit, and nobody was criticizing or anything, but people did bring up the. I don't know if it's like Greek mythology or something, but the concept of the ship of Theseus. And what the ship of Theseus or the concept is that you get a ship and let's say you replace like the mast with a new mast, and you replace like the hull with a new hull, and you replace every part with a new part. At what point does it stop being the original ship? Now, the reason why that applies to clones and aftermarket parts and things like reblades is, let's say I get a Pilar, and I want to make a new Pilar blade, right? And let's say I change out, the lock side, and that's something we've been talking about with, some of our friends in the Discord. And let's say, you change the show side scale to like a different cool scale, right? And you're just changing all these parts, right? At what point does it become not a modded Pilar, but a clone?
Well, I don't know if it'd be a clone because
I think it would stay a modded Pilar because you bought that original design, and how you're describing it is at least in the beginning you're adding pieces to it. You're not. It would be different if you assembled one from scratch using entirely aftermarket
because
parts.
Technically, like,
I think
the company that makes that knife still got the proper amount of money.
Yeah, they got your money.
Like they still got money.
They still got paid.
Yeah, what you do with it at that point is your thing.
Spending your own money to make something that you like different.
Yeah, they couldn't care less what you do with the knife. You already bought it.
Yeah.
Yeah, now if you bought like a new blade and a lock side and a scale and washers and all that stuff and just put one together, I don't think it's a clone. I don't think there's anything necessarily. Well, I could see.
Here's the difference. Right,
you see, like, it's
no.
Interesting question.
No.
Yeah.
Listen, it's not like. Here's where it's different, right? It's not like someone's. Okay, it's not like someone's buying a bug out, right? Doing a reblade on it, and then selling that to the market, right? They're not selling that over and over again. They're not buying bug outs themselves just to reblade them and resell them.
Yeah, it's a much lower amount of people than a clone would.
They're not. It's not a different knife. You still have to buy the bug out and then I don't know, reblade it yourself, or I guess send it to someone to be rebladed. But as long as that reblader, that person doing that modification, isn't like taking bug outs en masse and reblading them and then selling them after that, it's fine. It's not a clone.
See, because I want to do that, but I'm wondering about it.
I actually don't see an issue, even if say, Brian, you
not bug outs though. I'm done with that knife.
But let's say you bought 50 bug outs and you rebladed them, or 940s.
Okay, yeah, 940s.
You bought 50 940s and rebladed them. I don't see an issue with that. You're still buying the 940, or the 940 came from somewhere. You're not. It's not like you're making a 940 from scratch and being like, oh yeah,
that's true.
That's true. Yeah.
That would be a little different.
So you do still pay a tax in a sense of you bought the original and you paid the company for that, and then you just changed it.
Yeah, so they've gotten their money. I don't see an issue with it.
So the way I see it is, it's like buying a car from like, what's a car company? I don't know any.
Audi. I don't know. Honda.
Okay,
so you buy a Honda and then you change out the engine to a better engine, and then you sell it as a Honda with a better engine.
Okay.
it doesn't sound like a clone. Like it just
Well, it's
sounds
not.
like you
I
improved.
don't think
it sounds
it's
like
a
you
clone.
improved the car.
I would not
and then you sold it.
I would not classify what you've been talking about at all as a clone. Like never. Just it's not a clone. A clone
But
is like
I think there is well, I do think there's a point where it can get to being cloned possibly.
no.
but it just depends
There's no
on-
way unless you were like completely remade the knife.
That's what I'm saying. Like if Brian manufactured the blade, the scales, the lock bar, washers, screws,
Then it's a
all
clone.
of that, and sold it,
Yeah.
then it's a clone.
Exactly.
But he's not doing that. There's that
what
original
if-
knife has to be
okay,
purchased.
so what
and
if
it's small
what if it?
modifications.
But see, this is the thing about the ship of Theseus that this doesn't all happen at once. What if you start out right?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. It's like bits
But
and pieces.
I
you break.
just
Now,
don't.
let's
In this
say-
case, I just don't think it becomes a clone until it becomes one. Until you literally changed everything out, and then now you're selling it as a clone.
But if you don't sell it, I don't think it's a clone.
That too. Yeah, exactly.
Like I would love to have a Pilar with entirely original, well-made parts. I wouldn't consider that a clone. Now, if I'm getting 30 or 40 of those and then selling
You're
them,
a clone. You're
yeah, I'm a cloner.
Now I want to think about it this way. So we all agree that selling aftermarket parts is okay. So you can just sell scales for a Pilar, for example. Blade HQ sells scales for the Pilar, right?
Will sells aftermarket.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Scales.
Right, but I'm saying nobody has a problem
do,
with
yeah.
that.
Will is a
But
confirmed clone maker.
what if just imagine, what if Blade HQ sold a TI Lockside for the Pilar and then also sold separately a new blade for the Pilar and also sold separate
and you
and
bought
then
it
and then the
together
person, the
yourself.
customer buys all those things and then assembles it. What's the difference really?
Then it's a clone. Like if you're buying all the different parts,
but it's not a
is-
clone because it's one part. Like you're only selling
The
one
difference
part.
is buying it, the design at the beginning, and then modifying it because you paid the company. The company's got their money and they got their, they sold it to
but
you.
what I'm
That's
saying
that's
is
the
that
difference.
for each, let's say each
Like,
of
what
those
if you buy
parts,
entirely aftermarket parts and put it together yourself?
That would be a clone. I mean, it probably wouldn't be
but
very
the
impactful.
people, but each person
but-
wouldn't be selling a clone. They're just selling one part.
Well, they aren't clone makers. I guess the customer would be.
Because the customer,
listen,
guys, don't manufacture clones.
Okay,
it's not cool.
Well, I mean,
I think
It's not
the
about
company's just making parts. They're not making.
I think this
Right, 'cause-
I think this discussion's getting a little bit convoluted at this point.
Well, I think it's an interesting
I
question.
think
The question is,
I think
what if
it's stretching
like-
too
I
far
am-
because like this is ridiculous.
I'm
You
toying
sharpen
with
your
the, I'm
knife, you're a
toying
clone
with the,
maker.
no. I'm toying with the concept right now.
Normally,
where I might not need to tell customers not to buy clones. I might need to tell customers don't clone.
No, that's
Stop cloning.
it would be
Well,
listen, here's why that won't happen is because it would be infeasible for some maker to just start making no one's gonna like they're not gonna make a lock side for a Pilar and then sell that themselves.
Actually,
Actually, we've been talking
Echo's-
about that,
Echo's been
and
out
it
of the
may
loop.
be happening. Yeah, dude. If it happens, I'm gonna buy. Like, no shame. I'll buy one. I've bought a Pilar. I already have
right.
one.
You bought.
I would be slowly assembling
The
it over
important
time.
part
but
is
yeah,
that
I'm
you
gonna buy
bought a
alongside.
PLR in the first place, right? Because
Exactly.
now you have the design. It's like licensing the design, kind of like.
I think it's like paying the
Yeah,
royalty
so if I want to
almost.
swap out the
Like,
washers and the blades,
when
Yeah.
you buy the original design, it's like you paid the royalty to now modify it. Like it's yours now. You
Yeah.
own.
you can do what you want.
You
Yeah,
own
okay.
that. You
Yeah.
own that one knife.
Yeah.
Like I guess.
yeah, as long as I'm not making them from scratch,
Okay.
we're good.
See, that's what I'm saying about the customer being the clone. It's on them to buy the original design instead of buying every part and putting it together, because that would be I don't know, maybe a little unethical,
Possibly.
especially
it's
if
an
they
interesting
made them
question.
for other people.
Yeah, if they start selling them
Yeah.
like pre-assembled.
Okay.
yeah,
Well,
it's
with
shit.
that, we got to end this podcast. It's getting so long.
All right, welcome to Philosophy 101.
We'll continue this next podcast.
But it was no. Well, we shouldn't talk about clones next podcast. We've already used.
we'll talk about something different every time. We'll talk about something.
we-
different.
Never
So,
again.
Anyway,
Yep. It was great. Another
Yeah.
great podcast. We'll. Yep. Thanks,
thanks
Will.
for coming on,
Yeah,
Will.
thanks for
Appreciate
having me.
it.
That was fun.
Oh wait, before we close, we should share some information for Will, right? So Will is Parsons Bladeworks. he has a website, which is, I believe, parsonsbladeworks.com. Right?
Yeah.
Do you have an Instagram?
Yeah, just Parsons Bladeworks.
So, and that's Parsons, like, there's an S
yes,
at the
there's
end.
An S.
Parson S.
Yeah, Parsons.
Right.
Bladeworks.
That's not possessive. That is his name.
Yeah.
Don't put an apostrophe, okay?
It's not plural either.
Yeah.
It's not plural either. He's one dude. All right, so that's Will from Parsons Bladeworks. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yep.
Thanks for everyone for getting together and doing the podcast. Welcome back to Vex. He made the mistake of spending time with family last episode. It's okay. It's okay.
Never
we
do that
forgive
again.
you. Never do that again. Yeah. So thank you so much, and we will see you next time.
Also, just a reminder that you can find us at the in the Knife Club Discord on the old subreddit r/Knife Club Discord in the sidebar. You can click on our Discord link and talk to us there. All right, thanks guys.
Yes, come say hi.
Yeah, come.
Bye bye.